my wife and I, we don't talk about work very often.
Really?
Not very much at all. No, not very often. One thing I learned from one of my mentors very young is don't keep score. Because keeping score causes resentment.
Yeah.
And comparison.
Yeah.
When you're supposed to collaborate and cooperate. When my kids were younger and I had a lot less success and responsibility, it was easy. I was the most fun dad you've ever seen in your life. As a restaurant manager for about 6-7 years, managed about 11 different restaurants. And I realized I loved that. I didn't love the business, but I loved being with the people. I loved teaching, helping people make more money, developing people. And I love being able to influence people from a place of authority.
You're definitely one of the smartest guys I've ever met in terms of just sitting down and having a conversation with you. You seem to fire really fast on thinking about things that other people wouldn't think about and having a way of articulating yourself. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because on the TMCT podcast, the Mancave Talk Podcast, I wanted to get behind the curtains of what people see, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you're married. You just actually celebrated an anniversary.
16 years.
16 years married.
Yeah, I haven't even had facial hairs for about 8 years. But yeah, I've been married for 16 years. Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
So 16 years married. You're an entrepreneur. How does it all work together?
First of all, thanks for the kind words. And I truly appreciate that. And I really make a big focus on being able to break down very complex subjects into very simple things. So that means a lot. Very validating.
It will be fun hearing you break down this complex
Got it.
subject.
So marriage and entrepreneurship, kind of where they intermingle together.
Yeah.
And kind of how it's been working for me uniquely, right? So you see some people, and let's just say like you and your wife kind of have like partners in business, partners in life. I have business partners out there where they only have one car because they're always together. I have two different sets of business partners like that, where they work together, live together, sleep together, probably shower together, eat together. Like that's it. And then I think there's other marriages where it's very different, right? And I think about like the book around the 5 love languages and kind of what you need. Some people I think are built uniquely to have that type of work and home integration. And I think other people need to have it a little bit more separate. So for me, my wife and I, we don't talk about work very often.
Really?
Not very much at all. No, not very often. She does care what I'm doing. She does understand what I'm doing. She does care about the outcome, but she knows that my love language has nothing to do with work. Where she gives me and fills my cup in a different way, where we don't really talk about work at home.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
So
it's very different.
Does she work?
No, she doesn't have a job now.
She doesn't. So what does that look like? Is she taking care of the dogs, the kids, the cats?
Yeah, well, no cats. But yeah, we have 2 girls, 14 and 15 years old. So we got married. I was 21. She was 27. Her clock was ticking, so we got to get like at it quickly and had 2 kids. Yeah. And they've grown up as Irish twins. They're 13 months apart.
Wow.
And so she's been taking care of them and everything else. And we have a lot of stuff going on in our lives. A lot of stuff. Like, so she helps me a lot with other stuff that we do. We've always owned a lot of houses and rentals, and we have all these different things we do and family businesses that no one even knows about. So she helps a lot with that stuff, but just taking care of and being like almost a life manager is a full-time position in itself. And what a gift I was able to give her to let her be able to do that. Yeah. And she's ambitious. She had like 5 jobs when we got together. Really? She was very working hard, but when she got pregnant, she was working at a dental lab where they're making dentures and waxes and molds, and just the fumes weren't good for the baby. So at that point, that was a good catalyst for her to go home. And she did some bartending for a couple of years, but yeah, it's a different world where not everyone has to be completely intertwined. Like, I don't need another person to talk to me about work when I get home. I don't. Yeah. Because I'm already the person everybody comes to every single day, needing advice, needing answers, needing everything. And when I get home, no one needs that from me. It's actually a beautiful thing. Yeah, I bet. Maybe different than what most people maybe expect, but yeah, it's different.
Because a lot of men has a deep desire to have their wives work with them or to have some level of contribution to the business. And you're saying like, nope, take care of the kids. And she takes care of other things, like you said, in your business. When you get home, what does life with the kids and her look like? Are you able to turn off, or what does that look like? Where's that shut off for you?
So let me answer a different question first, then we'll answer that question next, right? So we kind of co-do everything, co-parent, keep it the house. She keeps it the house a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
But we don't really look at it like her responsibility or my responsibility, or I'll go make the money, you keep the house in order. It's just kind of been like something we tackle together. And one thing I learned from one of my mentors very young is don't keep score. Because keeping score causes resentment.
Yeah.
And comparison.
Yeah.
When you're supposed to collaborate and cooperate.
100%.
Yeah, so it's just an interesting thing. It's a very wise thing to understand that exists, and if you don't know it, it can lead down a very dangerous road.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm working my butt off, I'm doing this, you know. So instead, we both want it to get done. We do it together, or she says, "Nope, you're doing it wrong. I'll do it," or like just whatever way it goes, we just get it done. So
but
that's number one.
That's what most men do, though, and because I've had hundreds of conversations with men at this point, and they build up that resentment. They keep score. They do. And I'm guilty of it too.
Of course.
Where I've started off keeping score and being like, why I'm doing this, why aren't you doing that? And so that's beautiful that you shared that. So that was question one.
So question two is kind of like, what's it look like when you get home?
Yeah.
Right. So this is something I definitely have struggled with, for sure. Because when you have as many things going on as I do, all the different businesses, and all the investments outside of business, that all things we're working on, building and houses and real estate and everything, it's a lot. Right. So I've actually hired a coach myself to help me turn off my brain so I can be worked at. Right. So there's a book called The Alter Ego Effect by Todd Herman. I don't know if you've ever read that.
No.
But he's brilliant. Right. And he talks about how he takes high performers and achievers and teaches them ways and methods to leverage tokens and things that they can change into a different version of themselves without being a schizophrenic, right? I'll give you an example. Clark Kent has the glasses on. As soon as he takes them off, he's Superman, right? Bo Jackson's never played football before in his life. It's kind of crazy, isn't it? Do you know Bo Jackson?
No.
The most famous football player, also played baseball, was like an all-star. But they say Bo Jackson physically has never stepped on a field.
Really?
Because only his alter ego has. Because Bo Jackson's a beautiful, kind, empathetic man. And on the football field, he had to be a killer, so he was Terrence. He was somebody different. So he transformed himself into a different version of himself. So the book talks about how do you become this perfect work dad or work mom. And then at home, what can you do to shift the brain back into a different version of yourself, the version that your wife or the version that your kids need. So I'm working on that. I've been studying it for years, right? So the token that we've had is laptop in the bag, zipped up. And that allows us to put things away, especially when you work from home.
Yeah.
That's really difficult. So I have a coach coaching me on that specifically. The biggest problem with that is feeling like you have things that are unfinished, things that aren't done yet, right? And I never really knew what it was called, but coach, he taught me, he said, this is a cognitive overload. You have too much going on in your brain where your brain's moving all the time and you don't have room for any more things to come in. When I walk in, my wife says, what do you want to do for dinner? I'm like, dude, I haven't even thought about it.
Yeah.
And it almost gets a feeling of anxiety because I can't take in anything else because my brain's full. So we've been working on things like journaling at the beginning of the day, at the end of the workday, and at night to just get rid of all of that extra stuff in the head so we can be different versions of ourselves. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
When my kids were younger and I had a lot less success and responsibility, it was easy. I was the most fun dad you've ever seen in your life. Every day we're doing tea parties and pajama parties and sleepovers. But as I've gotten older and the girls have gotten older, it changes a lot. Because when I come home, I'm like, man, I'm whooped. Yeah, and I don't actually do any work. All I do is lead leaders now. I don't do work.
Right.
But it's still exhausting. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
So I have noticed in the last 6 to 12 months where I've gotten worse at that. I've been worse at being the dad and the husband that they need. So that's why I'm actively doing coaching.
Is it possible to set boundaries? Like when you get home, there's a boundary where you turn off, or and I mean from the outside world, being like what you do and having, I think you have like 16 businesses. Is there a turnoff where everyone has an expectation that you cannot get Chris at 6 p.m.?
I'd love to do that. I want to do that, like the do not disturb mode, but
Is it possible?
I'm sure it's possible, but there's also something inside of us that fights back and says, I don't want to let anybody down. You know, what if 1 second feedback from me can solve a huge problem, or put someone 12 hours ahead, or when you have people working overseas and I want them to make sure they wake up with enough to do, like, is it possible? Yes. Is it something that I've fully transitioned to yet? No, but I'd like to.
Yeah.
I have people, like partners of mine, mentors of mine, who do that. Their phone's always on do not disturb, period. They only look at the phone when it's time to look at the phone. And yeah. So and great. I mean, you're challenging me here for sure.
Of course, that's the reason why we're here, right? Yeah, because I really want to know and understand, and to some degree learn as well. Because the more success you have, the more responsibility you have. And I have been listening to so many biographies of great people, Steve Jobs, and like just so many great people who didn't really seem to have a balance that much. And so the question I keep asking myself, well, is it possible to have that thing people call balance? And I really hate using the word balance. I actually when I talk to my clients, I say, just give everything 100%. But if you're able to divide your time up and you know when you're going to give it 100%, then your brain turns off. That's what has worked for me. And as I thrive, I don't have 16 businesses. So I speak from a place of where I'm at today, which is why I'm so curious to hear how you have these successful businesses, successful marriage, kids, and what that actually looks like. Because I've also heard, we were at an event recently where I heard the owner of Spanx, what's her name?
I know who you're talking about. I've seen her on Shark Tank.
Yeah. Where she talks about being present in the moment, and her husband, Jesse Itzler. Like, they talk so much about being present in the moment, because getting to where they've gotten to, there's nothing there. And it's a concept that's like, it makes you pause. A lot of these books and these biographies talk about purpose and wishing that they found their purpose earlier. How do you feel about your pursuit and the success that you're having and having family? Do you feel like you're fulfilling purpose, or are you hitting a goal?
So I've always had a pretty crystal clear vision. Since the age of 25, I knew exactly why God put me on this earth. I knew it without a shadow of a doubt. So I've been focused on just making sure I'm fulfilling those things. And I've understood that success comes as a byproduct of the vision and the purpose being lived.
You know, I want to know what that purpose is. Right?
Yeah, it's I'll tell you. Yeah. It's to teach, guide, and mentor people, right? So I realized I was out of the Navy. I was a restaurant manager for about 6-7 years. Managed about 11 different restaurants. And I realized I loved that. I didn't love the business, but I loved being with the people. I loved teaching, helping people make more money, developing people. And I loved being able to influence people from a place of authority. And then I got into real estate, and then I was teaching real estate school and teaching continuing education classes at 3 hours at a time, just again and again. And I realized like that was what I was put on this earth to do, was to teach. And I could go become a teacher and not make any money. Or I could take that same profession and the same mission and go and mentor and guide people and teach people on different scale and just make tons and tons of money. So I chose to do that because I always believed in, you always put your oxygen mask on before you put on your neighbors, because if you have resources and the ability to help people and you have lots of resources, you can give to so many more rather than just giving your time. Right? So that's where I've been focused on. But no, I don't think it bleeds over too much, because I'm not the guy hitting a big number. I'm not going for a big, huge net worth number. It's more about impact. And it's like Jim Rohn talks about. He made a living, got wealthy, helping other people get what they want.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I do. I guess that was Jim Rohn or Zig Ziglar, one of the two.
Zig Ziglar. But I knew what he was talking about.
They're two old dudes. They look alike to me. But yeah, you get what I'm saying, though. So I don't think it's not like one's getting in the way of the other for me. It's not.
Love it.
My older daughter, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to work with you. I'm in. Like that's what I'm looking for.
Is that what she says?
Yeah, someone who wants to.
That's awesome.
Say, I see what Dad does. I want to do that.
Yeah.
And I constantly explain to them what I'm doing. I tell them I'm not doing work. I'm leading leaders. We're developing people. We're creating jobs. We're changing people's lives. We're creating coaching programs or buying coaching companies that are literally transforming the world. Instead of dropping a pebble into the pond and creating a ripple effect, we're throwing boulders in the ocean. We're making bigger waves. People want to be a part of that. And when your kids see that and they want to be a part of it, that's huge.
Let's talk about the relationship with your kids.
Okay.
When do you get time to spend with them, intentional time? And do you teach them the business? Is it like daddy and daughter fun time? Like what is that? Because again, when I speak to men and I ask this question, it's like, yeah, we're doing all of this for our kids. And then when I say, what does intentional time with your kids look like? Oftentimes it's very quiet. They're doing nothing. They don't know what to say to their kids other than basic stuff. So what is intentional
like
time?
Surface level conversations?
Exactly.
Well, I think it depends on how old your kids are.
Sure.
Right now, we're in the thick of it.
Yeah.
14-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl.
Yeah.
So emotions are flying. And they watch my YouTube. So if this ever gets to any of my socials, they'll see it. So I gotta be careful what I say. I swear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're like, hey, Dad, use me an example in one of your videos, and I didn't like it. I'm like, okay, all right.
Oh man.
No, but 14 and 15. So they need different things. One of them is they're both fiercely independent. Those girls could live on their own today, guaranteed. They can make their own money. They know what to do. So I did a good job there, my wife and I, right?
Yep.
But they each need something different. Like one needs more words of affirmation. She wants to make sure that she's doing a good job. She needs somebody to remind her that atta girl moment, right? And then the other one needs just more quality time. But they also want their space. They're fiercely independent. Like, you want to go on a daddy-daughter date? I don't know. I don't know. Like, well, what do you know? It's just we're in that period. We're also in the period where we're talking to our boyfriends on the phone or Snapchat.
Yeah.
And we're also in the time where they'd rather be hanging with their friends than hanging with dad. So it's changed. Over the years, we would snuggle on the couch and watch TV, and we'd go to the park, and we'd go to like sporting events, and we would talk. And I drove them to school for 10 years. Every morning we would talk the whole time and listen to like girl music and jam out. But it's different now.
Yeah.
They're at a different stage of their life. They don't need that. So dad is being really careful, and I want to be friend zone. I am focused heavily on the friend zone. I want them to be able to talk to me. I don't want them feeling like they can't talk to me. We talk about teenage boys too. Like, and probably one of the boyfriends will watch this because they all see me and stuff too. But like, what I tell her, I say, what do 16-year-old boys want?
Yeah.
What 17-year-old boys, what do they want? There's only one thing they want. What is it? You understand that, right? Okay, I understand that. Okay.
You had a Will Smith.
We talk about that all the time. Yeah. I talk to my girls about that.
Yeah.
Make sure they know what's going on. So I'm more preparing them for life and trying to stay in the friend zone as much as possible.
How does that conversation go?
Is this just real talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we talk about it. I said, boys think with the wrong head, period. And at that age, my mom always said, God takes boys' brains away when they're 15, and then they get them back when they're 35 if they survive. Like, that's serious. That's what my mom and stepdad say, right? And
So
I want them
true.
to know that. You teach in parables. You teach in metaphors, right?
Yeah.
And Sydney knows that. Brentley knows that. And some things are faux pas. We don't talk about it. But in general, I'm trying to make sure they can talk to me about it. And I'm not going to chastise them. I just want them to know I'm aware, I'm watching, this is what people want.
Yeah.
If this is what you want, that's what you're going to get. If that's not what you want, you got to make it known. And I the one wants to go to church every time the door's open. I enable that every time I can. Yeah, but that's what we talk about. But we talk about all kinds of cool stuff. They want to do Snapchat filter photos and videos. They want to dab, and they want to do all these things that they want to do. I'm like the cool dad though.
You're the cool dad.
I'm definitely the cool dad.
Bro,
Yeah, and we live in a small town. We live on the lake. Everybody thinks we're rich. It's kind of a weird dynamic, truly, because we live in a very small town, which is cool. But I'm okay with that. I'm not going to apologize for what I've been focused on. But at the same time, we try not to act like that, you know. And I'm always constantly reminding them about being humble. And I'm also making sure they remember how blessed they are. Like the one yesterday, my 14-year-old lifted up her window shade and looked out her window, and she's staring at the lake. I said, just remember how lucky you are. Not very many people have a view like this in their life. You have it when you're young. Don't take it for granted. Enjoy the sunsets. Don't brag about it at school. Like, just stay humble. So that's what we talk about.
How do you effectively get that across? Is it like a hit or miss? or because I heard Mr. Wonderful actually talk about some of the principles that he has in place for his son, where he doesn't get anything past college, like nothing, none of the wealth. Like he has it in a trust, and that's he's kind of got to fend for himself. Yeah,
it's an interesting take.
It is. Yeah. What's your take?
You know, the internet's very public, so I'm very careful what I say. And just all I'll say is, kind of growing up, I never quite, when I reflect on it, when I look back, whether this is reality or not, when I look back, I don't remember anyone ever asking me what I want to do. What does Chris want? Very, very rarely. Very, very rarely. It just wasn't part of my, I wasn't even thinking about it. I'm talking like graduating college. I'm like, all right, or high school, like, what do we do now? Like, when all these kids were applying to all these colleges and applying for scholarships and looking at brochures for the Navy, and like, I just never had that conversation. Ignorance was bliss, though. I didn't really care. I was just doing what I do, right? Yeah. And I turned out okay, I guess. But so my biggest focus is chat with them and tell me what you want out of life. Tell me what you want to do. What do you want to do? Because I don't remember being asked that very often. So I ask them that all the time. And I don't know. Yeah, I still get the I don't know answer. But one of the things that I teach young people, and I think you and I have talked about, I teach old people this too. I taught this yesterday to hundreds of people on Zoom. It's all about perspective. You literally don't know what you want because you don't have enough perspective. You need to go try things and look for that feedback loop of, ooh, that made me feel good. I like that. I like what I'm doing. I feel like this is why I'm here. And if you don't try things, then you'll never know. So I told them, I was like, first of all, I don't really think college is the best route right now for a lot of young people, unless you're going after being in the medical field, or you want to be a formal education teacher, an engineer, or you're in STEM. I mean, what is college getting people right now besides debt and dropping a whole bunch of ideals in their heads? Like, is that where 100%. Everyone should be going? So I talked to them about all the different alternatives. We're going to do something. We're going to keep moving forward. Yeah. But you don't have to choose one path yet. And I told them it's okay not to know. But we do talk about that a lot.
That's so good, bro. When I was in New York over the last weekend, I had my son, and I took him on a date, right? Like, we're just going to go hang out and eat together. And I asked him in the car, I said, well, what's your goal for 2024? And he was like, I don't know, Dad. He's 13, right? He's 13. I'm like, you should start thinking about what you want to accomplish this year. You know, like, do you want to save a certain amount of money? Do you want to make a certain amount of money? And then he's like, I want to win a Fortnite championship. I'm like, that's awesome. Yeah, it's like, good. Exactly. Yeah. What do you need to do to get to that goal? Well, I guess I got to start practicing a little bit more, and he started to think about it. And that's an amazing goal for me once he starts understanding the concept of, what do I actually want to accomplish? What do I want to do? Because, well, I can't say obviously. At this age, he may not know what he wants to do in life. Yeah. But if he's able to start thinking about goals and those types of things,
it's huge.
It's huge, right? Just setting something for the following year. Yep. What do I want to get accomplished? When it comes to goal setting, is it something you do with the family, your wife, your kids, and say, hey, this is where the family is going in the next year? Or is it something you do on your own? How does that look?
Yes and no. So very covertly. Yeah. So I'm not sitting down and doing family meeting and we're looking at it and like, I'm not involving them in that. Yeah. Should I be? Maybe. I mean, it kind of feels like sitcom family TV and that maybe people do that, right? Yeah. That's just never been my style. More, I'm trying to figure out kind of what would change their life this year and what can I do to help be a catalyst for that for me. Like, so my wife and I we're really into wine, red wine specifically, and we're watching documentaries on the Piedmont region of Italy and things like that. And just seeing the feedback from her and the way she receives that. Like, I want to take her to Italy. We want to go eat and drink our way through Italy responsibly, of course, right? Yeah, of course. But that would be life-changing for her. My younger daughter is going to Italy and Greece. My older daughter is going to Italy and Greece this summer on educational foundation tours, and that's going to be life-changing for her. My younger daughter, Brenly, she's into the things she's into. Like, I will fight to make sure that she has every experience she can have this year to make it amazing. She wanted to fight and get her grades up so she can join the beta club, and she did it. Like, I just want to help encourage that. So But no, we don't sit down like family meeting style, which I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
It's just not what we do. But
what I do is I always try to get out of my wife Jazz kind of what her vision and what she wants to achieve, right? Just understanding her. She's not the few years thinker, right? It's no fault of hers. She's the details person,
the integrator. Yeah.
She's the integrator, right? And so I collect data from her, and I go draw out this big vision map thingy as to the thing that gets us motivated and gets us pumped and encouraged to go after it. And she's like, and I get feedback from her, is this what you'd want to get accomplished? And she would be like, oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Right. And so I get her feedback and go out and create something that works from a vision, a statement, something that we could both read. And the reason why I do that is because in previous marriages and previous relationships, I just did what Keston wanted.
Yeah.
Right. I'm just like, these are the goals that I want. I'm going after this. Oh, you're coming along for the ride.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of doing a cumulative vision.
Yeah.
And I think for many men, the reason why they don't get support is because they don't even understand what their wives want.
Yep.
In life.
Yep.
To any man that's listening, like, you want to change your situation like right away, find out what she wants. And like 85% of the men that's listening to this right now, if you ask them, what does your wife want to do? You're like, it's a good question.
Yeah.
You know,
unless they have like a breadwinning wife.
Exactly.
Yeah. 100%.
She's kind of running the show.
Yeah.
Right. Talking about this, finances comes up, right? How do you guys do finances? Is it your money, my money? Is it like what comes into the house, we kind of divvy it up? Like, do you guys have roles, responsibilities when it comes to money? How does money work in the Moors?
So we're a single income family, like where it's just my efforts is producing the income.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like we both put a whole bunch of money in the pot and then we split it, or you have your money, you're my money. Because I have friends in every one of those scenarios, and we've talked about stuff like this. But for us, it's just been, it's always our money. And she's not somebody who goes out and spends all the time. She's very frugal, even though she grew up in a very well-off household for most part. Like, she's still very frugal. She understands that we can't accumulate if we spend everything. So I handle everything, man. I know it's different for everybody. All these guys listening, it's different for everybody. For my household, though, like that's my role. It's what I do. Even when we were dating, I took over her finances pretty quickly because that's who I am. I'm good with money. We wouldn't have money if I wasn't good with money. So that's why we have it. And so that's just been my role. And it's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's just how our house works. And sometimes there's things that stress your wife out, right? Is it safe to say? And you want to take the brunt of that on you, so your wife doesn't have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
In our world, money is not something that, and handling finances and budgets and all that, it's not something that she thrives with. So me taking that on is real natural. This is what I thrive with. Yeah. Same thing like with my mom and my stepdad. My stepdad's big on the numbers, and my mom loves money, but she doesn't want to manage the money. So she, like, to her, it's no big deal. As long as you got it, I'm good. You know?
Does she get like an allowance or money that makes her feel like, well, Chris, could I get X, Y, and Z?
We talk about that, but no, like there's really no limitations in play at the moment. We live in a world where we don't have to have a lot of limitations, which is kind of a skewed reality. I can understand that. Yeah. But we just, and she also knows that if something needs to be, if we're like, hey, whoa, we need to stop spending, and then she'll stop. Or like, hey, we need to do this and this. We got 3 big expenses coming up. We need to be careful about this. Then she follows it perfectly. But she needs the guidance. Otherwise, she's just going to keep doing what she does. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's just our relationship. Everybody's relationship is different.
Yeah. Man, which is why I'm so interested in in different perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Because a couple of episodes ago, I spoke to Pace Morby, and he talked about...
Who's that? I'm just kidding. I know Pace. I know Pace. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
And he talked about giving his wife $100K salary a year because he calls her the CEO of the home, and she gets that That's what she has. That's what she gets to spend. And so I'm just curious of how
Sure. Yeah.
other homes.
Everybody's different.
It's so different.
Yeah.
But it all works, right?
So I look at my grandma.
Uh-huh.
Right. My grandpa passed away last year. Been battling cancer for a long time. Grandma had mad money, so she called it mad money. She had like $300 to $500 in her wallet at any given time.
Yeah.
And that was her money just in case she got mad and she wanted to go do what she wanted to do.
Yeah.
And as long as she had that, she felt equipped, ready to go. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Susie's got a mad credit card. Like but at the same time though, she lived in a world where she had to really be careful about what she spent. She was in a relationship before me that was very, very different, and she had to ask permission to even use the restroom, it felt like, so this is a different way. Like, I'm treating my wife the way she wants to be treated, the platinum rule, not the way I want to be treated, right? She wants to have freedom, flexibility. She wants to feel like she can go out and spend money if she needs to spend money, if she wants to buy something beautiful for the household. And that's one of the things she's doing, is gifting me like a very comfortable atmosphere. Like, she needs to feel free to be able to do that. And that's, everybody's different though, but that's where my world lives. Yeah.
What's one of the biggest struggles or challenges that you've had in your marriage as it pertains to entrepreneurship or even just relationship, kids, or anything like that? What was one of those times where it's like, man, we're on the ropes right now?
It's probably all me. It's probably I am the problem, most likely.
Tell me more.
And that's more just not making sure that priorities stay priorities, or letting myself and what I'm going after, just like we discussed earlier, kind of define what success looks like, not what success at home. And sometimes you got to be brought back. Sometimes there's these moments, and I think God lets these moments happen because he wants to like snap you out of it. Like, oh, you're about to go down the wrong route. You need to pay attention for a few minutes. Just like when my hands shattered, I felt like that was God saying, hey, you're going to live a long life. If you keep doing this stupid stuff and running these big races and doing Ninja Warrior, you're going to die young or be crippled. Like, so I think sometimes we have these moments that's almost like a catalyst for change. So I've had several of those moments where I had to look myself in the mirror and hold myself accountable and say, am I being the best version of who I need to be for everyone in my life? Because maybe these symptoms, maybe these behaviors, maybe what I'm getting back as feedback is a direct reflection of what I'm putting out, rather than this is something that's happening to me or you've changed. And I think that's where most people go, and they don't look in the mirror and say, what could I have done differently to see a different result? And I look at when I was younger, I'm sure my wife's going to watch this, but when I was younger, she married a very fun, goofy Chris Moore. She married somebody who was really lighthearted, managing restaurants, bartending, like just fun loving. And these little girls that I had grew up with a dad that was throwing them in the air and playing around and goofy and like making stuffed animal wedding videos with funny accents on YouTube. Like, and then as a serious 37, 38-year-old Chris, very successful, owns all these companies, makes all good money, and has everything he ever could want. And they don't care about that at all.
Yeah.
All they want is the man that my wife married and the dad that the girls want. That's all they want. So I'm the problem at the end of the day. Any man watching this that truly believes they're not the problem needs to look in the mirror and understand you have some level of responsibility, whether it's not all of it or not.
Yeah.
But that's the key thing. So when I lead people in my businesses, my teams, people I mentor, you got to stare yourself in the mirror and say, what could I have done differently to see a different result? Whenever you have a paradigm shift of shifting your focus away from why are these things happening to me compared to maybe this is on me and what can I do to learn from this?
Do you have accountability in that area of your life? So you're going through something, you know, problems at home, because we as men have pressures that most people can't relate to, but we as men also have ego that makes us not talk about these things. Mm-hmm. Do you have accountability? How do you deal with these types of situations? I've
got friends that we can talk freely about what we're dealing with. Mm-hmm. I tend to be the listening ear more than the talking ear, but I'm as being as young, like we're the same age, but wisdom wise, I feel, and I say this humbly, like I'm very wise. I'm very introspective. I'm very focused on stepping away and looking at the whole scenario and say, whoa. Yeah. I study human behavior. Yeah. I study that behavior and symptoms are just what that is. It's just a symptom of a problem. I'm always big around trying to look around it, not taking things at face value. And I also understand that I'm also one of those guys, very few people are rude to me, which is weird. You know how some people just attract negative energy?
Yeah.
Or like every time they do anything, the world's out to get them or anything. Like I'm very different than that. I think it's because it's all about outlook.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think I don't have to have as many of those conversations, although I do have them from time to time. Sometimes I use my mom as my sounding board. Yeah. Sometimes it's my buddy Jared. Maybe it's Carl or Ross or just somebody. I've got other friends, Joe, that I talk to, but I'm more the listening ear on most of that stuff. Yeah.
Do you feel like there's something that you wish women knew about men, like, or your wife particularly knew, like, this thing so that they could either leave you alone or like something like that?
My wife's very perceptive, and I think over time she's learned that some of the things that may annoy her or bug her, she's understood why they're happening, and I appreciate and love that.
Did that happen over time? Y'all are married 16 years.
Takes time, but like the idea of like, I'm not going to remember this conversation because I'm in the middle of work mode and my mind is fully engaged. And I'm just reliving this conversation I just had, and I'm preparing for a multi-million-dollar negotiation with the other side of my brain. Like talking about Costco at this moment is not going to stick into my cache memory. Like, and I think she understands that. And then, but she at the same time just wants the respect of saying, "Hey, if your brain's not going to be able to absorb this, let me know so I can save it for later." Like, so I think it's always compromise. Anything's in compromise, but it's also understanding each other, right? The biggest thing that I have in my life is I have a hard time retaining things that come my way when I'm in the middle of work. Like you may have said it. I'm not denying you've said it, but I don't remember it. Like it never actually absorbed in because I was so engaged. My mind's like this finely tuned machine, and it just doesn't like extra input when it. So that's why I was saying earlier, I got a coach to help me try to like just get all that stuff out of my head.
Yeah.
You know, get rid of that stuff so I can absorb what I need to absorb. And I'm learning. I'm still battling that every day.
I mean,
I am the problem. I know that.
I think as an entrepreneur that is always kind of working towards more and achieving more, that's going to be something that having a coach to help you kind of redial things in. Because like when Jazz and I, when we started real estate, we had to figure out how to work together in real estate. Then when we started like the coaching company, and we had to re-figure out certain things, and communication wise, we figured out how to communicate, but there were certain things that I needed now that I didn't need when we were heavy into real estate. And so that dynamic changed over time. When it comes to y'all's relationship, you've been together for quite a while. Were there anything you had to overcome to sustain your marriage? So any addictions, were there anything as a man you had to deal with in your relationship or before getting into your relationship
Not really. You know, I got married at 21. So I think my longest relationship ever was probably 3 months before I met my wife, and she's been my longest one. 16 and a half years and running, right? So I never really had a lot of perspective that I had to compare with. Mm-hmm. To me, this has always been my normal, right? And number two, I think if I had learned anything early years, like when we first got married, like literally, I think 8 days after we were married, she got pregnant. Like we were in it to win it, ready to roll, right?
Yeah.
I always say it. Some people get their life together, then they have kids. Some people have kids and then figure out life. So we were the second one, right?
Right.
I really realized that relationships weren't all physical. That's one of the first things that I learned when we were just married for a couple of years. I learned that we developed a much deeper friendship beyond any type of physical relationship, and that was a really cool lesson, and that was special, and that's something that's lifelong, where physical is not always lifelong. You look at grandma and grandpa, I don't even want to think about it, but hope there's going to be limitations later. So being friends and appreciation and adoring somebody is very different than like being obsessed or infatuated. So I think it's letting love kind of take over instead of lust. I think is kind of a cool thing. But no, luckily, I've never had any type of issues with having to overcome that. I know a lot of people have.
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of friends that have been, it's difficult. The ones, especially the ones that I know that have gotten married or for the first time or second time in their late to mid 30s.
Yeah.
Very difficult because there's a different mindset. It's a lot more focused on you. Like I have guys that I know that have gotten married and they've married women in their early 40s, and the women have never had kids, never been married. Like it's not that they're selfish, that's just the only way they live. It's all been focused around them the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very different scenario versus when you get married young, maybe, ignorance is bliss. But no, I haven't had anything like that.
Do you know why God didn't want people to have sex before marriage?
So they marry for love and not lust? Is that why?
That's a good, and obviously this is all assumption, right?
Sure. Interpretation.
Yeah.
Haven't really thought about it though.
Memories. He doesn't want you to have memories, bad memories. And because memories doesn't go away. And there have been so many times, bro, and my wife and I have talked about this, where I lived a very promiscuous life before getting married. And once we got married, I could still see those people, even when I'm laying with my wife.
Yeah.
And those memories was something that I had to really be intentional and work on and getting out of my head. And it wasn't until then I realized why you shouldn't have sex before marriage.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because now you're fighting all of these devils, these memories that you just can't get out of your head. And this is a conversation that most men will not have with their wives. I attacked it head on. I told her exactly what I was struggling with because I didn't want to fight it on my own. I didn't want to.
And she's going to tell you're dealing with something.
Oh, yeah.
She can smell it. Women are intuitive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was the guy that had to deal with the addiction of pornography and all these other things. And all of these images was in bed with me.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I'm laying there and I'm using another image to get me stimulated. And I believe so many people go through this today.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
And have no idea how to verbalize it.
It's comparison.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. And then you typically have a number one in a field of some type of sexual activity, and now you're judging your wife to who is number one in this thing that you did. Because as boys on the block, that's what we used to talk about.
Yeah.
We would sit down and talk about who was the best at whatever. And so now most men don't marry their Beyonce wife.
Yeah.
Right? They don't marry all that it is. And so now you're marrying somebody that's lower on the pecking pole. What does life look like?
You asking me?
No, it's just
perspective. Yeah, I don't know.
Perspective.
It's very interesting. Yeah, and there's a lot of people that struggle with that. I know that's a huge thing. I'm glad I don't struggle with it.
Man,
I know there's a lot of people that do. Yeah, but I think that's one of the things about being married so young, like I did. I'm not. And 16 years is a long time where memories have faded.
God bless you.
Yeah. So, yeah.
No, it's definitely a struggle that you don't want to have, and it's one of the things that I talk about with men, and I share with them how I was able to work on that and overcome having those types of sites where now I'm pretty good when it comes to being in bed with my wife. So, final question. I love ending with this question.
All right.
When it comes to intimacy, how does business affect your intimacy, especially having being able to shut your mind down? Because I could only imagine you don't get a hard on thinking about selling a company or something is actually pretty stressful.
Yeah.
So what does that look like?
That'd be weird though.
Yeah, it would.
There's some people that are into that, like Wolf on Wall Street, like Matthew McConaughey. That scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it makes me think of. So truth be told, it doesn't help it at all for sure. Because I think having the ability to be intimate and having that really special moment where you're 100% present, if it's harder for you to be present in general, it's harder for that as well. So that's one of the reasons I've been focused on self-improvement, because I want to be able to give a better version of myself to everyone in my life. Yeah. Yeah. But it definitely does affect it 100%.
Yeah.
Right. You know, when we have our most connected moments, it's when we're able to get away. And I think that's normal, especially when you've got a household full of kids and dogs and everything else. But when we get to go on the anniversary trips and we get to go and be just us, because we don't get a lot of that time. 16 years married, 15.7 of them with kids. Like, you know, we never really had time for us. So when we can make time for us, that's when we can feel the most connected.
Do you set intentional time for yoga?
We've done a couple times a year. We need to do a lot more. I was teaching goal setting yesterday, and one of the things that I've been trying to hold myself accountable for, I didn't talk to my wife about this yet. She'll see it. I guess she sees it. But one of the things that I was challenging people to do is to think about what they value. What do you value, right? When you think about that. And I saw a lot of these questions, these answers coming in, like family, God, vision, clarity, peace, all these different things, and my kids and church. Like, but then the next question I said is like, does your calendar reflect what you value? And it was just one of these gut punch moments. And the reason I did that is because I'm also dealing with that. How sacred am I able to make date night? I've talked a big game and wanting to do date night, and it just doesn't happen as often because it doesn't get planned. The next thing we talked about is what gets planned gets done. So my mantra for 2024 is I'm trying to be better. Just be better. And that's why I'm trying to be more focused on not just saying I value these things, but proving it by putting it on our calendar. So that's what I challenged everybody to do yesterday. And I think it's a powerful exercise. So I'm going to be more intentional this year on doing that and putting my phone on do not disturb mode. And like you said earlier, setting expectations to the outside world, business partners, friends, that during these times we don't talk.
Yeah.
Because these times are only for these people. And that's what my family deserves. Have they always gotten that from me? No. Yeah. They have not. You know.
That's something I'm definitely going to keep you accountable to.
Please. I need it because no one else is, man. Yeah. Everybody else is just me do whatever I want to do.
It's so beautiful because I typically set 3 goals every quarter. And the recurring goal that I continue to set is being a better husband. And being a better husband comes with different things and tasks and things that I have to do, which my wife, one of her love languages is she likes to wake up to notes and gifts and that type of stuff. And so I literally write down when I'm going to write a note to leave it for her because I hate writing notes. I don't enjoy it. I've gotten to enjoy it a lot more because of how happy it makes her when she wakes up to a note. You know, buying gifts, that's her love languages. I'm like, why does this matter? And
she wants to give it
but
to
she
you.
Wants it. Yeah. And so it doesn't matter to me, but it matters to her.
Yeah.
And I have to write it down and schedule. You gotta, this week, you gotta buy her a gift, you know? And so it's something that I literally plan out and map out when I'm going to do it, kind of like in my 12-week year that I plan out. So I encourage every man, like if your desire is to be a better husband, like put it on your calendar and get it done. So I'll definitely keep you accountable. Please do, man.
And my wife, acts of service is her love language. She brings me food. Like during the middle of a Zoom meeting, she'll walk in and drop down 2 sandwiches, perfectly crafted, the right hot sauce, everything. During COVID, when I was stressed out, 2 Corona Lights with 3 limes each on my desk at 4:30 p.m. every day. And for my wife, I give her, she definitely likes gifts for sure, but really what she wants more is quality time. And that's what I've got to keep trying to build that in and stay focused on it, right? That's,
you know, what's interesting about love languages, I've often found that your love language, that's the thing that matters most to you, is probably the thing that matters the least to the other person.
Correct. Yep.
And I feel like God has crafted it, created it that way because this is how 2 becomes 1. Because you have to get better in that area to be able to serve this person, which means that you got to get unselfish to give yourself up for this person. And like you just said, bro, this is going to be your challenge. This is what I'm going to hold you accountable to.
I need it.
Thank you for saying it publicly.
Absolutely.
So I could hold you accountable.
Fine.
Chris, bro.
Enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for
Absolutely.
this podcast, bro.
It's fun.
Thank you. Guys, the TMCT podcast. I'm going to be starting a really special group for my men where we're going to be doing live calls. That's not going to be recorded, but it will be a space for you to be able to come and have these types of candid conversations, because I understand what it's like to be vulnerable publicly, and I just want to create a space for everyone to be able to talk and feel safe, and so that you're not having to give out all of your information. So look out for that. That's coming really soon, because I know that you're dealing with things that you probably don't want to share publicly. So thank you guys again for watching. Chris, thank you. Until next time.
Yeah.
Peace.